Hi. I don't seem to have a good connection. Anyway, Sherry Miller here. It's been a long time since I have been on live on Facebook, but it's time to be back. And I am here because we need to talk about leadership with the riots happening in Minnesota, which is a complete disgrace of what's going on here. I live about 50 miles south of where the riots are currently happening, so I'm not right there in it. My brother is right there in it. He's about 10 blocks south of where the riots are happening, so I do have a pretty strong connection up there, and I'm close enough. When you drive around, you know, you're aware of what's going on. So it's hitting me pretty close to home. And obviously, what happened with George Floyd is horrible. It is absolutely horrible. But that's not what I'm here to talk about. It's the utter, complete, total, stunning lack of leadership that has occurred around this whole scenario. It is just shocking to me. And it's not through the particular, I'm going to turn a little bit because of the sun. It's not intentional on anyone's part. It's just a lack of people developing into who they need to be in order to encounter these very, very challenging scenarios successfully. So, you know, it started with the cop. He did not have the leadership capacity to be a good leader. And they work in a very, very, very challenging environment in the 3rd precinct there in Minneapolis. That's a very challenging environment. So that's not a statement to be made lightly. But when you work in that challenging environment, you have to be an incredibly developed leader in order to be effective in the environment. And he didn't have those skills. Nobody helped him build them, and he didn't build them himself. But you know, people fail. People flip out, people lose it, people, even quietly, he was kind of doing it quietly, but people do the wrong things, very wrong things, and it happens. And that's why we have police force and courts and laws and things like that, because that stuff happens. It's not okay. That's why we have that other stuff, but it happens. So that's not what I have the biggest problem with. What I have the biggest problem with is, first of all, wow, I don't know if this video is going to work. Anyway, nobody stopped him while he was doing that. That's the first thing. And then after it happened, no official leader immediately stood up and transformed this into a positive jolt to action. In fact, I would almost say the opposite thing happened. And then people started protesting, which is okay. People have a right to protest. People are upset, rightfully. They're angry, rightfully. They need to voice that, and that's okay. But then again, there wasn't a good positive response to that. Then the rioting started. And the leadership is absent. They're absolutely absent. And no one is doing this intentionally. They just haven't become who they need to be to handle these scenarios. We've become a society of complete wimps. We don't want anything. We're scared to death of viruses. We're scared of something in my food. We're scared somebody stepped on my toe. We're scared of everything. And we just want to be protected from all of life. And then something happens, and we all sit around going, well, somebody else take care of it. Somebody fix it. It's where have the leaders gone? Where are they? They are not in Minneapolis. Anyone can be a leader. And sorry, the connection is so poor here. The leader is whoever changes the energy. The leader is the one that changes the energy. You don't have to be appointed as a leader. You don't have to have a hierarchical position. You don't have to have authority. You just have to have the capacity to change the energy, which means you have to have incredible connectedness to your own energy. I actually used to teach leadership, and I defined leader, in a corporate setting, but I defined leadership as the channeling of stress energy into the flowing energy of productive work. That's what leadership is. Leadership is not having a position, it's not having authority, it's not having granted powers to do bad things to other people if they don't comply. It's not giving orders, and it's not coordinating. Leadership, in the truest sense of the word, is changing the energy. Because that's the only time that we need leadership. If the energy's fine, we don't need a leader. We might need a coordinator, but we don't need a leader. We need a leader when the energy has a problem, when it's stuck, or when it's explosive, or when it can't flow. That is when we need a leader. And the purpose of the leader is to transform the energy into energy that can flow. Flowing energy is always beautiful. Always. When there is ugliness, that is energy that gets stuck and explodes and gets stuck and explodes, but it's not flowing. So by my definition of leadership, leadership is always beautiful. And any time that there is any event, any time that there's any challenge, any differences, there's really only leadership needed when there are differences. And it doesn't matter if it's, racial or just ideas or whatever, but if there's a difference, then there's an interface there, and energy can either flow or get stuck. And that's when leadership is needed. And so every opportunity that has that interface creates, there's friction, there's extra energy, there's stuff going on. Every time you have that, there's a couple of things that can happen. 3 things, really. One is that energy, you can try and quelch it, which is what leaders of force often do. Really, I don't know if I caught that from due to connection. You may be able to temporarily quelch it, but it's festering and it's building higher. So now there's more festering. You're feeding a festering fire, and sooner or later it's going to come out strong. And the more you try and quelch it, the stronger it will come out, which is actually what you're seeing up there. You can ignore it and hope it goes away, which it won't, because it's either going to be building outwardly or building inwardly, but it's going to be building because it still can't flow, or you can flow it. So every time there is a problem, every time there's an interface where there's friction, where there's a rise in energy, is potentially an opportunity to step up and be beautiful. Beauty is not a sidelines thing. Pretty is a sidelines thing. Beauty is deep. It's emotional. It's tough. It moves us. Beauty moves us. And every time something like this happens, it is an opportunity for people to stand up and show how freaking beautiful they are. And I am exploring ways right now to help up there. It is best to have someone step up from within the community. I am exploring ways where I can help someone who maybe needs a little nudge, but they would do it. It needs to come from their own people. And it's not coming from the leadership, so it needs to come from the ground up. And that's fine. It doesn't matter where it comes from. We just need someone capable of changing the energy. The single greatest aspect, single greatest quality that a leader can have, bar none, is to be able to be grounded in who they are. Because when you are grounded, you are beautiful and you take beautiful action. When you are grounded, others can't knock you off balance. When you are grounded, you know what to do because all the sensory data comes in properly and gets processed well. It doesn't go, we don't go into fear mode, we don't go into blocking, we don't go into reaction. We're able to process effectively. The leadership today, there were a couple of people that stood up a little bit. The governor of Minnesota finally got up and started to show some qualities of leadership. He needs to go a lot further, but he started to do it, and I commend him for that. I don't know where he was for the last 4 days, but he is starting to show it. But from what I've seen, he's the only one so far. But I think there's going to be more. And they'll eventually start coming. And if you get another one and another one and another one, then pretty soon there'll be enough. But this isn't about the riots in Minnesota. This is about leadership in general. We're coming into a time where there's going to be more chaos, I believe. Many of us believe. Right? We're transitioning. A lot of the old institutions and things that people believed in and relied on, it turns out, they're not probably the great things that we thought they were. And maybe they started off as great and deteriorated, or maybe they just weren't the right answer, but we thought they were at the time, but now we know better. But in any case, there's going to be a big shift away from a lot of very ingrained, institutionalized thinking and behaving and institutions themselves, and into more free-flowing, in touch with yourself in relation to everything that you're connected to kind of living. It's coming. It's already happening. This is what people want. This is where they're happier, because this is nature's way. And so people are shifting that way, but you don't just wake up and go. It kind of has to build and fester and get enough energy for that to happen. But that means that there's that point where there's a lot of energy and it's fiery and it's electric and a lot of stuff can happen that's maybe not good. But you kind of need to build that up in order. So we need to be okay with that energy and not have it knock us off balance, and have it instead feed our centering and feed our grounding and feed our capacity to stay strong and open, in open strength and beautiful. Have it feed that so we can transform the energy into the right direction. Because you've got to have that energy. If we can't confront it, we're never going to change. It requires extra energy to change. That's what it's there for. That's the stress battery. That's the energetics. I'm not going to talk about that right now, but that is available for use when it's needed. And it's going to be coming up all over the place now. And this is a time where people who aren't strongly grounded are going to get uglier. And it can be, jobless people on the street. And it can be people at the very upper echelons of money and society and however you want to call that. It can be people anywhere on the spectrum. The ones that don't have that true grounding are going to get uglier. And the ones that have it are going to get more beautiful. It's going to get stronger and more beautiful. And beauty will always win. Beauty is tougher than anything. Beauty is the toughest force of all. Beauty moves people. So when you're at the crossroads and when the energy is getting funny and you're not sure, just ask yourself, which would be the more beautiful response? Beauty is not giving people hand. We don't look at that and it can move you to tears under particular scenarios, under extreme conditions. But generally speaking, that the person receiving the handout does not become a more beautiful person. Beauty is when people in any part, taking part in any place on this continuum, gets more grounded and stronger and more open. And that's always the right answer, because that is nature's way. That's what allows you to connect and to flow freely. So what allows the energy in the system to flow. Everyone's energy. So if you're listening to this, you and I, we need to be the beautiful leaders. Where are the leaders? Well, it's us. It's not anybody who's currently in charge. It's us. We need to step up, and not just in Minnesota, but wherever you are, there's going to be chaos. And that's an opportunity for beauty. And let's use it like that. Thank you.